Do you know the story of Jesus and the fig tree? One morning, Jesus was headed to Jerusalem and he was hungry. He noticed a fig tree by the side of the road and went to see if it had any figs, but it was too early in the season and it only had leaves. Jesus then curses the fig tree, saying, "May no one ever eat your fruit again." The next morning, as Jesus and his disciples passed by the tree, it had withered from the roots all the way up to the top. Now, I remember hearing this story when I was younger and thinking, that's so unfair. It wasn't the tree's fault that it wasn't ready yet to produce fruit. Have you noticed, though, how many times fig trees are mentioned in the Bible? My research shows there are at least 63 references to figs and fig trees in the Old and New Testament. Adam and Eve used the leaves of fig trees to cover their nakedness, and Jesus uses a fig tree as a parable to describe his second coming when he says, "When its branches bud and its leaves begin to sprout, you know that summer is near." Summer being the season before the final harvest. Jesus uses another tree as an example, the mustard tree, when he says that if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. Of course, in Matthew 13, he explains that the mustard seed, being the least of all seeds, grows into the greatest of herbs. So our faith isn't meant to remain the size of a mustard seed. It's meant to grow. And growing into a tree that has leaves and provides shade and can cover us is good, but trees are meant to bear fruit. And ultimately, like the fig tree, if they don't, they're good for nothing. Now, getting back to the problem of the unfairness of the fig tree, do you ever look at situations in the world around you and think, that's so unfair? And it shouldn't be that way. How could God allow good, innocent people to be harmed by the greed and the dishonesty of others? How could he allow children to be sold into slavery or people to be tormented year after year without intervening and taking away that suffering? In these moments, do we express a desire for Christ to just come back and make everything right? That's faith. That's good, to believe and trust in his plan that he really does plan on making it right, to believe that he really is going to come again. That kind of faith covers us in our moments of trial and gives us peace. But is that the kind of faith that bears fruit? When you look at the injustices in the world around you, do you say, that shouldn't be? Or do you look at it and say, how can I be a part of the solution? To bear fruit is to be a part of the final harvest, to gather not only yourself, but all of God's children safely back into his presence. And that may look different for everyone. It may look like sharing your faith and inviting people to read the scriptures. More often than not, it looks like what Isaiah described, saying to loose the bands of wickedness, to undo the heavy burdens, to let the oppressed go free, break every yoke, give bread to the hungry, bring the poor into our house, cover the naked, and care for our own relatives. Sometimes bearing fruit literally means bearing or raising your own children and teaching them the way back to God. And if you've done any of these things in the past, that's good. But remember, trees don't bear fruit once and then they're done. They provide year after year, producing fruit that has seeds that then create new trees that produce fruit of their own. If the injustices of this world break your heart and harrow up your soul, that's good. That's what they're meant to do. Only a seed that's been broken open can grow, and ripe fruit falls from a tree that's been shaken. So if God is shaking you, maybe that's because you're meant to share your fruit with others. And that may be a very subtle thing. Quietly, one-on-one, loving and helping those who you notice are suffering. And if these great atrocities in the world pierce you more deeply, maybe that's because you are meant to discover a way to help those children who haven't even had a chance to reach out and taste of the fruit of the tree of life because they're just trying to survive in the dirt and the dung around them. Whatever you've been feeling in your heart, consider that you too, like Adam and Eve, have been commanded to be fruitful and multiply, to grow into a tree that not just has leaves that provide shade, but one that bears fruit, the kind of fruit that Jesus Christ, the bread of life himself, hungers for. He hungers for all his children to be gathered safely into the fold, and you are the very tree that he has planted to do that. One last thought. You may already be bearing fruit and just simply haven't realized yet that all you need to do is consecrate it to the Lord. Be willing to let him use that fruit as he sees fit. Either way, this week, I challenge you. Anytime you see something unfair in this world, instead of thinking that it shouldn't be that way, think, how can I be a part of the solution? Pray and ask how you can fill the measure of your creation. Journal about it, write it down, and then be willing to act on that. Be willing to grow your faith. Brothers and sisters, if you're concerned that you don't have the ability or the time to do the things that you're feeling inspired to do, that's great. That's exactly what faith is. It's believing in something that hasn't happened yet and acting as if, taking that first step anyway. And I know from personal experience, that is the exact moment when we are blessed with power from on high to move mountains. I think of the trees in The Lord of the Rings, trees that had been forgotten, abused, cut down, called to gather together, to break through stone and walls to release the life-giving waters that had originally nourished them. I think of the aspen grove in Utah, all individual trees, all one organism, nourished by the same roots, large as a mountainside. Can faith the size of a mustard seed move mountains? Oh, yes. If it fills the measure of its creation, if it is combined with other trees, all working together to nourish and sustain perpetual new life.